She stood on that rooftop, gripping a microphone, issued me an ultimatum in front of 50 people, and waited for me to crumble. I didn't beg. I didn't argue. I didn't even speak. I simply turned and walked away. That's when her flawless little plan began to unravel, because sometimes silence hits harder than any words ever could. My name is Ryan Chambers. I'm 41 years old, a senior developer at a tech company in Austin. My wife, Lauren, is 36 and works as a marketing manager at the same company. We've been married for 14 years and have a 6-year-old daughter, Olivia. From the outside, we look like the ideal family. Stable careers, nice home, happy child, the full picture-perfect package. The night everything broke, a part was supposed to be a celebration. Our company had just launched a new platform. Lauren's team absolutely nailed the marketing campaign, and our VP of Technology, Jordan Palmer, decided to host a rooftop party downtown to celebrate. Lauren insisted I attend. She said it would be good exposure for me, good for my career. I should have trusted my gut and stayed home. By the time we arrived, the rooftop was buzzing. Music, drinks, laughter, the whole corporate success scene. Lauren looked incredible, wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Within minutes, she disappeared into the crowd, leaving me alone near the bar with a beer in my hand. Corporate networking has never been my strength. I've always preferred code over cocktails. About an hour later, I saw her across the rooftop. She was laughing with Jordan. His hand rested casually on her back. Too casually. Too comfortable. A knot tightened in my stomach, but I pushed it aside. They're colleagues, I told myself. Don't overthink it. Then the speeches began. Jordan stepped up first, talking about innovation, synergy, teamwork, the usual executive buzzwords. When he finished, he handed the microphone to Lauren. She thanked her team, talked about the campaign, the sleepless nights, the dedication. Then her eyes locked onto mine. Something cold flickered across her expression. I want to thank the people who believed in me when others didn't, she said. Some people are happy staying exactly where they're forever, playing it safe. But I'm not that person anymore. The crowd applauded. I stood frozen. She stepped off the small platform and walked directly toward me, still holding the microphone. The crowd instinctively parted, creating a path. My pulse pounded in my ears. Ryan, she said, her amplified voice echoing across the rooftop. We need to talk. About us. About what you want. About what I want. I'm tired of waiting for you to figure it out. Every single I turned toward me. Jordan stood near the stage, arms folded, watching. So here it is, Lauren continued. Right here, right now. Are you in or are you out? Do you want this marriage? Or should we just move on? The rooftop went dead silent. Somewhere, a phone vibrated. A glass clinked awkwardly against another. She had crossed a line. She had just given me a public ultimatum in front of co-workers, friends, and executives. I looked at the woman I had loved for 14 years, and I didn't recognize her. I said nothing. I set my beer down, turned around, and walked toward the exit. No speech, no argument, no defense, just silence. Behind me, gasps and whispers rippled through the crowd. Someone called my name. I didn't turn back. I took the elevator down, stepped into the warm Austin night, and kept walking. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. That was the real end of my marriage. Not with counseling, not with a final conversation. It ended in silence under Texas stars, in front of 50 witnesses. I woke up the next morning in my brother Kevin's guest room, still wearing the same dress shirt and slacks from the night before. My phone lay face down on the floor, with 3% battery left, 47 missed calls, 62 text messages. I didn't open a single one. Kevin was already awake, making coffee when I shuffled into his kitchen around 7. He took one look at me and poured 2 cups without asking questions. That's the thing about good brothers. They know when to talk and when to just hand you caffeine and keep quiet. You want to tell me what happened? He finally asked after I finished half my cup. I told him everything. The rooftop, the ultimatum, me walking away. He listened without interrupting, and I appreciated that more than I could explain. She's lost it, Kevin said when I finished. At 43 and divorced for 3 years himself, He knew what betrayal looked like. You did the right thing. Walking away took more strength than staying. My phone buzzed again on the table. Lauren's name flashed across the screen. I let it ring out. You gonna talk to her? Kevin asked. Eventually, I said, not today. The messages started pouring in waves. At first, they were short and sharp. You just left. Real mature Ryan. Then they grew longer, defensive explanations. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. By mid-morning, the tone shifted. We need to talk about Olivia. She's asking where you are. That one cut deep. My 6-year-old daughter was probably confused and scared, wondering why her dad didn't come home. I finally replied, tell Olivia I love her. I'll see her soon. We'll talk when I'm ready. Lauren responded almost instantly. When you're ready. Typical. It's always about you. I put the phone down before I said something I couldn't take back. Around noon, another message came in from someone unexpected. Taylor Reed, a junior developer on my team. Hey, Ryan. I hope this isn't crossing a line, but I think you need to know something. Can we meet for coffee? I stared at the message for 5 straight minutes. Taylor was 28, sharp, reserved. We'd worked together for 2 years, strictly professional. Why reach out now? Meet her, Kevin said after I showed him the text. If she's contacting you the day after that mess, she knows something. He was right. I replied, coffee sounds good. When and where? We agreed to meet at a cafe near the office at 3. I showered, changed into some spare clothes Kevin lent me, and tried to prepare myself, because I was starting to understand something. Last night wasn't the beginning of the end. It was just the moment I finally saw what had already been happening. The end had been building for months, maybe longer. I'd just been too busy being a devoted husband and father to notice. Taylor was already seated when I walked into the coffee shop at 3. She sat in a corner booth, holding a latte like she wanted to disappear into it. I slid into the seat across from her. What do you need to tell me? I asked. She took a steady breath and met my eyes. I've known about Lauren and Jordan for 4 months. I should have told you sooner, but I didn't know how, and honestly, I wasn't sure it was my place. Even though part of me suspected it, hearing out loud felt like being punched. For at least 4 months, she added quietly. Taylor slid her phone across the table. I took screenshots. I'm sorry, Ryan. You deserve to know. The messages were there. Flirty at first, then unmistakably intimate. Plans to meet at hotels. Conversations about when he finally figures it out. Promises of just a few more months. There were expense reports, too. Business trips that matched hotel bookings under different names. My hands trembled as I scrolled. Taylor gently pulled the phone back. There's more, she said softly. Financial records. Jordan's been approving expense reimbursements for Lauren that don't match legitimate business travel. Thousands of dollars over 6 months. For what? I asked, my voice barely steady. Cosmetic procedures, jewelry, spa treatments, all filed under client entertainment or marketing expenses. The words barely registered. She had procedures done? I asked hollowly. Breast augmentation in March. Botox every 6 weeks. She told people it was for confidence, for her career. I'm sorry, Taylor added. It wasn't just an affair. It was planned, strategic. Lauren hadn't only betrayed me. She'd used company money to reinvent herself for another man, while I worked overtime to support our family. Why tell me now? I asked, because last night made it clear, Taylor said. That ultimatum wasn't about giving you a choice. It was about humiliating you publicly so she could justify leaving. Jordan's planning to promote her to VP of marketing. They needed you out, and they needed it to look like your fault. I leaned back, trying to absorb everything. Does HR know? Not yet, she said. Then she reached into her bag, pulled out a flash drive, and placed it on the table between us. Everything's on this drive, Taylor said quietly. Messages, expense reports, hotel invoices, all of it. What you decide to do with it, that's up to you. I took the flash drive and slipped it into my pocket. Thank you, Taylor. I mean that. There's one more thing, she added just as I stood to leave. I paused. Jordan's married, has been for 6 years. His wife lives in Dallas with her 2 kids. He keeps it quiet so he can play the bachelor at the office. That stopped me cold. Lauren knows? I asked. I don't think so, Taylor said. He's been lying to both of you. I walked out of that coffee shop with evidence in my pocket and a level of clarity I hadn't felt in months. Lauren had tried to frame me as the obstacle, the weight holding her back from becoming who she wanted to be. But I wasn't a villain in her narrative. I was just a man who finally opened his eyes. The most painful part of everything wasn't the cheating or the public humiliation. It was explaining to my 6-year-old daughter why I wasn't coming home. I picked Olivia up from school that Friday, 3 days after the rooftop disaster. Lauren's texts had grown more aggressive by the hour, but when it came to Olivia, we managed to keep things barely civil. Olivia ran to my car with her princess backpack bouncing behind her and gave me a huge smile. Daddy, where have you been? I've been staying with Uncle Kevin for a few days, sweetheart, but I'm here now. She buckled in, then looked at me seriously. Why aren't you staying at home? Kids have a way of asking the questions adults aren't ready to answer. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I chose my words carefully. Mommy and Daddy are having some grown-up problems right now, but that doesn't change how much I love you. You know that, right? She studied me. Are you getting divorced? Like Emma's parents. Emma, her kindergarten best friend. That divorce had been ugly, and Olivia had asked about it for weeks. I don't know yet. Honey, maybe. But no matter what happens, you will always have both of us. We love you more than anything. She was quiet for a moment. Then she asked softly, Is it because of Mr. Jordan? My hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. What do you mean? I heard Mommy on the phone. She said your name and Mr. Jordan's name. She sounded mad. I pulled into a nearby parking lot and turned to face her fully. Olivia, listen to me. None of this is your fault. Sometimes adults make mistakes. Sometimes relationships change. But you did nothing wrong. Okay. She nodded, though confusion still clouded her eyes. We spent the afternoon at the park. I pushed her on the swings, helped her across the monkey bars, bought her ice cream, even though dinner was less than an hour away. Just normal dad things. Moments that mattered more than corporate parties or broken marriages. When I dropped her off that evening, Lauren stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. I walked Olivia to the door, kissed her forehead, and told her I'd see her soon. We need to talk. Lauren said once Olivia disappeared inside. Yeah, we do. I replied evenly. But not here. Not now. She frowned. What does that mean? It means I've hired a lawyer. You should do the same. We're going to handle this properly. A lawyer? Ryan, don't you think that's a little? You gave me an ultimatum in front of 50 people. I cut in. You humiliated me. You've been spending company money on plastic surgery and hotel rooms with Jordan Palmer. So yes, I got a lawyer. Her face drained of color. How did you? It doesn't matter how I know. What matters is you made your decision on that rooftop. Now I'm making mine. I turned, got into my car, and drove away. In the rear view mirror, she stood frozen on the porch. For the first time in days, I felt like I was steering my life instead of just reacting to hers. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about being right. It was about protecting my daughter and my future, and that meant standing firm. Monday morning, I sat across from Patricia Vance, one of the most respected divorce attorneys in Austin. She'd been recommended by Kevin's ex-wife. Ironically enough, Patricia was in her mid-50s, sharp-eyed and razor-focused. She had a reputation for dismantling unfaithful spouses in court. She reviewed the contents of the flash drive on her laptop. Let me make sure I understand, she said. Your wife committed expense fraud, had an affair with a married executive, publicly humiliated you to justify leaving. And you have documentation of all of it. That's correct. She leaned back slightly, a thin smile forming. Mr. Chambers, this is one of the most airtight cases I've seen in years. Your wife essentially handed you the leverage. What about Olivia? I asked. Custody. With this evidence, you'll secure joint custody at minimum, Patricia said. Possibly primary custody if we demonstrate that Lauren's decisions created instability. Her involvement with a married man who's deceiving her strengthens your position considerably. For the first time since the rooftop, I felt a real weight lift. What's next? I filed today. We cite adultery, financial fraud, and emotional abuse. I'll also notify your company's HR department regarding the expense violations. Jordan Palmer won't just lose a relationship. He'll likely lose his job. Good. She studied me carefully. Most clients in your situation are driven by revenge. You seem focused on something else. Revenge won't undo what happened, I said. But making sure my daughter has a stable father who fights for her, that matters. Patricia nodded. Then let's begin. By Wednesday, Lauren had been served. She called 17 times in 2 hours. I didn't answer. Her messages escalated quickly. How could you do this? We can fix this. You're destroying our family. I responded once. You destroyed it on that rooftop. I'm just formalizing it. Thursday afternoon, Jordan called. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. Ryan, we need to talk, he said, his voice tight and controlled. There's nothing to discuss. Lauren told me about the divorce papers. You're making a mistake. We can handle this quietly. No need to involve the company. I actually laughed. Quietly? Like you quietly spent months sleeping with my wife using company funds. Silence. I have everything, I continued. Expense reports, hotel receipts, messages. You're finished, Jordan. I paused and added, and here's the best part. Your wife in Dallas is getting copies too. You son of... No, I cut him off. You made your choices. You wanted Lauren? She's yours. But so are the consequences. Enjoy unemployment. I hung up and immediately called Patricia. Jordan just tried to negotiate. I told her. Can he do that? He can try, she replied. It won't help him. The evidence has already been submitted to HR and documented in the divorce filing. He's scrambling to contain damage, but it's too late. She paused. How are you holding up? Honestly, better than I have in months. Good. Keep that mindset. This won't be easy, but we're positioned to win. That evening, I picked Olivia up and took her out for pizza. She studied me between bites of pepperoni. Daddy, are you okay? Yes, sweetheart, I said truthfully. I really am. She smiled. Good. You seem like you again. Out of the mouths of children. She was right. For the first time since that rooftop, I felt like myself. Not the man who ignored red flags. Not the man who worked late nights while his wife planned her exit, but the man I should have been all along. Someone who stood up when it mattered. 2 weeks after filing for divorce, Lauren asked to meet in person. Not at the house. Not at a lawyer's office. Neutral ground. I chose a downtown coffee shop. Public enough to prevent theatrics. She arrived 15 minutes late, dressed in a tailored business suit I'd never seen before. Probably bought with money that wasn't hers to spend. She sat down across from me. Dark circles framed her eyes. Her jaw was tight with tension. You're really going through with this, she said. Not a question. A statement. You did this, Lauren said, her voice tight. No, I corrected calmly. I'm just following through. Ryan, please, she whispered. Can't we at least try counseling? For Olivia's sake. For Olivia's sake? I kept my tone steady. You had an affair with a married man. You stole company money for cosmetic procedures. You humiliated me in front of 50 people. None of that was for Olivia. She looked away. I made mistakes. Mistakes are forgetting a birthday. Missing a bill. What you did was planned. Months of lies. Months of theft. Months of manipulation. That's not a mistake, that's a decision. Her voice rose slightly. I felt trapped. You were always working, always buried in code and projects. I needed more. So your solution was to steal from our company and sleep with my VP? I replied evenly. That's how you handle feeling neglected? People nearby started glancing at us. Lauren noticed and lowered her voice. Jordan said he loved me, she said softly. He said once everything's settled, we'd be together. Jordan is married, I said. 6 years. 2 kids in Dallas. He's been lying to you the entire time. Her face drained of color. That's not true. He told me he was divorced. His wife served him divorce papers last week. She hired a private investigator. She documented everything. And from what I understand, you're not the first employee he's had an affair with. Lauren's hand trembled as she reached for her coffee. You're lying, she whispered. Ask him. Oh, wait, you can't. He blocked your number 3 days ago when HR opened their investigation. The last bit of color left her face. For a split second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. What do you want from me? She asked finally. Nothing, I said. I want joint custody of Olivia. And I want you to stop pretending you're the victim. You made your choices. Now you live with them. I stood up. She grabbed my arm. Ryan, please. I know I messed up, but we built a life together. 14 years. That has to mean something. I looked down at her hand, gripping my sleeve, then back at her. It did mean something, I said quietly, right up until you threw away for a man who was using you. I pulled free and walked out. She didn't follow. On the drive back to Kevin's place, I felt something unexpected. Peace, not happiness, not triumph, just a quiet certainty that I'd done what needed to be done. Lauren had tried to rewrite the story, to paint herself as trapped, misunderstood, forced into betrayal. But I wasn't participating in that narrative anymore. I was moving forward. And for the first time in years, it was on my terms. 3 weeks into the divorce, I met someone who shifted my perspective. Her name was Michelle Torres, a project manager at a competing tech firm. We met at a local coding meetup I'd started attending just to get out of Kevin's house and feel normal again. Michelle was 39, a single mother to an 8-year-old boy named Carter. Divorced 2 years earlier after her ex-husband's gambling addiction nearly bankrupted their family. She spoke plainly, direct, no drama, no emotional landmines. After the second meetup, we grabbed coffee. Nothing romantic. Just two people who understood what rebuilding looked like. So you're the guy from the rooftop incident? Michelle asked with a small smile, stirring her latte. Half the Austin tech scene has heard about it. I groaned. Fantastic. I'm famous for all the wrong reasons. Actually, she said, most people think you handled it like a boss. Walking away without engaging, that took backbone. It didn't feel like it. That's because you were in shock. From the outside, you looked composed. She looked desperate. She leaned back in her chair. My ex tried to rewrite our story too. Told everyone I gave up on him. That I was cold. It took months before people realized he was drowning in gambling debt and lies. How you get through that? I asked. Therapy. Good friends. And realizing his version of me didn't define who I actually was. She met my eyes. Same applies to you. Lauren can spin whatever story she wants. Truth has a way of surfacing. Over the next few weeks, Michelle became a genuine friend. We arranged a play date for the kids. Olivia and Carter connected instantly, building elaborate Lego cities while Michelle and I talked in her backyard about work, parenting, and the strange emotional limbo of divorce. You're handling this better than you think, Michelle told me one afternoon. I don't always feel strong. That's normal, she said. Strength isn't about not being hurt. It's about not letting the hurt destroy you. You're still showing up for your daughter. You're fighting for stability. That matters. That night, Lauren called. Unexpected, since communication had shifted almost entirely to lawyers. What do you want? I answered. Jordan's wife filed for divorce, Lauren said. Her voice sounded hollow. She's taking everything. His career's over. He told me he's moving back east. He doesn't want anything to do with me. And you're telling me this because I was wrong, she said. About everything. I threw away 14 years for someone who didn't even care. I sat down on Kevin's porch steps. Yeah, I said quietly. You did. Is there any chance? No, I cut in. You made your choice. You can't undo it because it didn't work out the way you hoped. Silence filled the line. I hope you find whatever you're looking for, I said, but it's not with me, not anymore. I ended the call and stared out into the dark, expecting satisfaction. Instead, I just felt tired. A few minutes later, Michelle texted, "How'd it go with the kids today?" I smiled. "Good. Really good." Sometimes moving forward isn't about dramatic victories. Sometimes it's about quiet closure and the people who remind you that you're stronger than you feel. The custody hearing arrived on a cold Tuesday in November. Patricia met me outside the courthouse, briefcase in hand, confidence radiating from her like armor. "Stay calm," she advised as we walked in. "Answer directly. Don't let her attorney provoke you." Lauren sat across the courtroom beside her lawyer, Richard Pratt, a sharply dressed man known for aggressive tactics. She looked thinner than before. The designer clothes and styled hair couldn't hide the exhaustion in her eyes. Judge Catherine Brennan, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, reviewed the file before addressing the courtroom. "This is a custody hearing regarding Olivia Chambers, age 6. Mr. Chambers is requesting primary custody with visitation rights for Mrs. Chambers. Mrs. Chambers contests. Proceed." Patricia presented our case methodically. The affair, the misuse of funds, the public humiliation, the documented evidence from Taylor's flash drive showing sustained deception. Lauren, attorney, objected several times, but Patricia had every document prepared. Mrs. Chambers misused marital and corporate resources to sustain an extramarital relationship, Patricia stated. She introduced instability into her child's life and demonstrated a pattern of deception lasting months. Mr. Chambers, by contrast, has maintained steady employment, secured appropriate housing, and consistently prioritized his daughter's well-being. When it was Lauren's turn, Richard Pratt painted me as emotionally distant and career-obsessed. He argued that Lauren's affair stemmed from neglect, that my long hours pushed her away. Judge Brennan interrupted sharply. "Counselor, are you suggesting that infidelity and financial fraud are reasonable responses to feeling neglected?" Pratt immediately backtracked. "No, Your Honor. I'm providing context. Context does not excuse misconduct. Stick to matters relevant to child." When I took the stand, Pratt shifted tactics. "Mr. Chambers, isn't it true you frequently worked late nights and weekends?" "Yes," I answered, "to provide for my family." And during those late nights, Lauren's attorney continued, "Who was caring for Olivia?" "My wife when she was home," I replied calmly, "and my brother when she wasn't. I made sure my daughter was never alone or unsupervised." "But you were absent." "I was working," I said evenly. "There's a difference. I attended every school event, every parent-teacher conference, every doctor's appointment. I coach her soccer team. Can Mrs. Chambers say the same?" He didn't respond. Patricia then called Taylor Reed to the stand. Taylor testified clearly and confidently about the expense fraud, the documentation she gathered, and the internal investigation that led to Jordan Palmer's termination. Then Patricia asked one final question. "Miss Reed, during your review of the records, did you uncover anything else relevant?" "Yes," Taylor answered. Jordan Palmer had a pattern of pursuing married female employees. Lauren was not his first affair. There were at least 3 others over the past 5 years. Lauren's face went completely pale. Judge Brennan reviewed the documents for several long minutes. The courtroom was silent. Finally, she looked up. "Based on the testimony and the evidence presented, I am awarding primary physical custody of Olivia Chambers to Mr. Chambers. Mrs. Chambers will receive supervised visitation every other weekend until she can demonstrate stable employment and housing. This court does not take financial misconduct and sustained deception lightly, especially when a child's stability is involved." The gavel struck. Lauren's attorney immediately stood to signal an appeal, but Judge Brennan cut him off. "You may file, counselor. However, given the strength of the evidence, I see little likelihood of reversal." Outside the courthouse, Patricia shook my hand firmly. "Congratulations, Ryan. You handled this with integrity. And you won. I called Kevin before I even reached my car. I got primary custody. That's my brother," he said proudly. "I'm proud of you." That evening, I picked Olivia up from school and took her for ice cream. I didn't tell her about the custody ruling yet. That conversation would come in time. For now, I just wanted to be her dad, the one who showed up, the one who fought for her, the one who chose strength over resentment. For months after divorce was finalized, I ran into Jordan Palmer at a grocery store. Pure coincidence. I was reaching for milk when I noticed him in the next aisle. He looked like he'd aged a decade. The confidence was gone. The tailored suits were gone. He saw me, froze. For a second, I thought he'd walk away. Instead, he approached. "Ryan, can we talk for a minute?" Every instinct told me to leave, but curiosity held me there. "You've got 60 seconds. We stepped into the parking lot. Jordan stared at his shoes before speaking. I wanted to apologize. "What I did to you, to my family, was inexcusable. I destroyed your marriage, mine, my career, for something that wasn't even real." "You're 4 months too late," I said. "I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just needed to say it." He took a shaky breath. "My wife took the kids to her parents in Ohio. I can't see them without supervision. I'm working at a startup making a third of what I used to. Everything I built is gone. And you think I should feel sorry for you?" I asked. "No," he said quietly. "I think you should know that walking away that night saved you. You didn't become me, a man who had everything and threw it away chasing nothing." I studied him. He wasn't looking for sympathy. He was just broken. "I hope you find a way to rebuild," I said finally, "but stay away from me and my family." He nodded and walked to a beat-up Honda Civic. No Porsche, no executive presence, just a man living with consequences. I drove home thinking about how differently things had unfolded. He'd chased something hollow and lost everything. I'd lost my marriage, but found myself. That night, Olivia and I made spaghetti, her favorite. She stood on a stool stirring sauce while I handled the pasta. "Daddy," she asked suddenly, "are you happy now?" "Yes, sweetheart. I really am. Are you?" She nodded. "I like living with you, and you smile more." Kids notice everything. Later that week, Michelle invited us to Carter's birthday party. Nothing romantic, just friends celebrating. Olivia had a blast. Michelle joined me on the porch while the kids ran wild in the yard. "You're doing great," she said. "Single dad life suits you. Some days are rough." "That's parenting," she smiled. "Married or not. But you show up. That's what matters." The following month, I was promoted to senior engineering manager. Better pay, better hours, a team I respected. Taylor was part of that team, and over time we became solid friends, professional but genuine. "You earned this," she told me after the announcement. "Not because of the drama, because you're good at what you do." Life began to settle into a rhythm. Not perfect, but honest. Not what I had planned, but something real. For the first time in years, I felt aligned with where I stood. 8 months after that rooftop ultimatum, I stood in my new apartment watching Olivia arrange her toys in her bedroom. It wasn't extravagant. 2 bedrooms, a small patio, close to her school, but it was ours. "I love it here, Daddy," she said, hugging her stuffed elephant. "Me too, kiddo." Lauren had moved to Dallas for a fresh start. She called Olivia weekly and visited monthly. Therapy seemed to be helping. She'd found work at a smaller marketing firm. We weren't friends, but we could co-parent. That was enough. Kevin came by that afternoon with pizza and beer. We sat on the patio while Olivia watched cartoons inside. "You look different," he said. "Lighter." "I feel different. Like I finally stopped carrying weight that wasn't mine." He took a sip of beer. "Lauren asked about you last week." "What did you tell her?" "That you were thriving." Didn't seem like she liked hearing it, but it's true. He glanced at me. "You ever think about dating again?" "Maybe someday. Right now, I'm focused on being the best dad I can be." Michelle and I had grown closer, but we kept things platonic. We both knew healing came first. Maybe someday that would change. Maybe not. Either way, I was okay. 2 weeks later, the company held another rooftop launch party. The irony wasn't lost on me. This time, I wasn't the quiet guy by the bar. I was the senior engineering manager who led the project. People sought me out, asked for my input, treated me like someone whose presence mattered. Taylor joined me near the railing. "How's it feel being back on a rooftop?" she asked. "Different," I said, looking out at the Austin skyline. "Last time I was on one, I thought I was losing everything. Tonight, I'm celebrating what I built. You've come a long way. We both have. I left early to pick up Olivia from Kevin's place. She fell asleep in the car, and I carried her inside, tucking her into bed the way I had countless times before. Standing in her doorway, watching her sleep peacefully, I understood something clearly. The night Lauren handed me that ultimatum, I thought my life was over, but she didn't end my life. She just removed herself from it. And in the space she left behind, I built something stronger, not flawless, not untouched by pain, but real. I didn't need her validation. I didn't need Jordan's downfall to feel vindicated. I didn't need revenge. I just needed to keep showing up for my daughter, for my work, for myself. That rooftop ultimatum was meant to break me. Instead, it freed me. And standing there in my daughter's room, in my own apartment, living an honest life, I finally understood the power of walking away from something toxic and towards something better. Sometimes the loudest statement is silence. Sometimes the strongest move is simply turning around and leaving. I did both, and I've never been more certain I made the right choice.